Yeah, so thanks very much, everyone, for making the time to join our panel session. Perhaps just to set a bit of context behind, the topic that we've selected, building back better on Asia's climate response. As most of you know, even with the COVID-19 pandemic and the global lockdowns around the world, we have only seen really, a cut in terms of emissions by just 5%. For us to really achieve the aspirations of the Paris Agreement, we would need to do much more and hit at least emissions cut by 7.6% on a global basis. Inspired by, I suppose, the Green New Deal, U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt, social economic reform proposed a package of legislation that aims to address climate change and economic inequality. And we've seen, U.S. Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio really stepping to the fore and championing this. The European Commission as well, through the executive branch of the European Union, has led a proposal for a European Green New Deal. But the real question is, can we actually replicate and do something here in Asia? And what does an Asian Green New Deal actually look like? What is Asia's response towards the climate change, which a lot of people have said is really in many ways, a dress rehearsal for what is to come and how feasible it is. And today, joining us, we have two very distinguished guests. First up, we have Dorjee Sun, who is the CEO of Perlin, right? And also named a Times Hero of the Environment for the work that he has done. And secondly, we also have Aarti, who is a well-known maker and a very passionate environmentalist, also a fellow of the Asia 21 Young Leaders in 2018. Welcome. Perhaps just to jump straight into it, can I get, Dorjee, just to share with us a little bit about your background and how did you get into the climate change space? In particular, why is this an important issue to champion?
Thank you so much, Renard, and thanks everyone for attending. I'm just looking through the people list and it's so damn exciting. So many old friends from around the world, and I just wish that we could do this in person, so that we could just catch up. I mean, half of the benefit of our network is not actually in the sessions. Everyone in the chat could basically be on the panel. But so going back in history, and many of the people on the chat know about this, but 2007 was really when I started my journey. My personal passion is around avoided deforestation. So conservation has the co-benefits, including, obviously biodiversity, community work. So going back in time, that was carbon conservation. We did the first carbon trade with Rio Tinto, $3 million. We protected a forest in Queensland, Australia. We then secured rainforests around the world, so mostly in Indonesia. So I'm now based in Singapore. And it's been well documented just in terms of the failures of the carbon market. So basically, it feels like Groundhog Day, but when Biden won and ironically appointed John Kerry to be his climate czar, there's a feeling of hope again. So obviously, there's still going to be a lot of political factors, COP26, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be the Georgia runoffs in January, but my wife and I, we do angel investment, but we also do carbon. And so we've hired back the carbon team from 2007. We have a peat forest with tigers and some of the rarest birds, stormy storks in Indonesia, so 3 times the size of Singapore. That will all be coming public in the next week or so. So we're still deeply embedded in carbon and climate change. But just to come back to your question, Renard, is there political will, given that, if you look at some of the really scary data, people kind of think that things have gotten better, but they really haven't. So if you ask me, with a young family, I think we have to solve this problem in 10 years. Last comments would really be, it feels like solar has tipped, so energy is being reshaped. Solar is now hitting a price point per kilowatt hour that is able to beat, coal-fired power. I think that EVs through Tesla and electric vehicles have tipped. I think that the big gaping holes that need innovation, I think beef has tipped, like Impossible Burger, Mosa Meat, Memphis Meat. So really now, I think land use change. So how do we actually reforest at scale and also protect forests? I think that there are some things like like flight, so aviation. But there's so many different developments. But I'll stop there and hand over because I'd love to hear questions. And I've just put my email and I'll put my WhatsApp in. Anyone who wants to reach out. So we've also, last point is what's different with today versus before is that we've now got new technology. So nano satellites, LiDAR, even Sentinel-2 data allows for 10 meter pixelated land cover on a regular basis. So there's a lot of technology which is allowing for a shift. Another example, so the last 5 years I've been in Bitcoin, blockchain, really looking at how smart contracts, digital wallets, digital identity are going to be able to allow for money to go directly, hopefully avoid some of the leakage and governance problems to communities. And so we backed, Singapore government has backed a carbon trading platform called Air Carbon, where you tokenize the carbon. So there's a bunch of innovations that I'd love to talk about. But super excited to be here. Anyone in Singapore, come on down, have a Tiger beer, and let's stay in touch. Hand it over. Thanks, Renard.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dorjee. Seems like there's a lot of optimism and a lot of hope that we can actually look forward to in the climate change space. I would actually like to bring Vivian Claire Liew, who's just joined. She is the CEO of PhilanthropyWorks and also Climate Alpha Advisor. And she does quite a bit of work, I believe, in the climate finance space. Vivian, perhaps you could share a little bit about the work that you do as well, and like what into championing climate action.
Sure. Hi everyone, and my apologies for the technical issues earlier. I could hear you guys, but somehow I couldn't. The settings didn't work, so I apologize for that. So yes, we provide climate alpha advice, insights to sovereign wealth funds and impact funds. We also advise on climate resilience and all. Climate change is the existential crisis of our lifetime, not COVID-19. What we've seen with COVID-19 is unfortunately really a precursor of what's to come. So, I'm an idealist pragmatist, so I'm giving it to you guys straight. For those who haven't seen that cartoon comic image of, a tiny thing followed by a tsunami, Google it, and that gives the sense of what we have to be cognizant of and be prepared for. So decarbonization, but before that, really the buy-in, communications of, the urgency of the crisis, buying in and bringing all sectors of society, not just the economy, although the economy is key, but all sectors of society so that we are all rowing in the same direction. We have seen how when the powers that be ignore certain sectors of society, how that leads to politics of division, and how even simple things like wearing a mask can be politicized. So there's already risk of that happening with respect to, climate change. If you look at the votes of certain states that are in the firing line, on the front lines of the climate crisis, it's hard to comprehend. So we need people to understand that, the situation we face is very much like, Frodo and team in the Lord of the Rings. We all need to work and band together so that we can address this and create a better world for our generation and for our children, right? So stewardship is key. The climate insights that we have provided and the resilience strategies, they all in a way hinge on our projections of of the timeline and the extent of what's to come. So back in 2018, before the UN IPCC report, we were the first to project. We were the first globally to project that 4 Celsius is the baseline warming scenario going forward. And of course, there have been changes since. So we really need everyone to decarbonize so that, the life that we have created, all the sustainable development progress that we have made across countries and across time, that we don't lose ground as we have with COVID-19. So
Like,
I am based in Singapore as well. So happy to collaborate and all.
great message there, Vivian. I think on the need to bring stakeholders together and working within the ecosystem. Great message. Now, Aarti, I just wanted to bring you in because a lot of your work sort of stems around like filmmaking and documentary. So, what got you started, and what is sort of your end goal in terms of?
Okay, so I'm basically I'm based in India, and I'm doing a lot of environmental documentaries here, which talks about biodiversity, which talks about afforestation, which talks about livelihoods, health issues, all related to. Basically, I just did one documentary before, and since then I've been only attached to environment, and I've been only doing documentaries related to environment, and it gave me no chance to talk about any other cause or issue, which is basically maybe a social cause or a society. So basically, I've been in this for the last like about 8 to 9 years, have filmed about 10 to 11 documentaries already, and doing a couple of them for the government of India, which is basically on various ideas and projects being implemented to tackle climate change issues and the impact of climate change. So when I got into it, I was not aware about the intensity and the depth of the issue and all of that was surrounded. So when you look at India, it's basically like 58% of India, like the population, depend on nature-based economy. Any shift in temperature or any shift in the rainfall or any change in that impacts 58% of the population of the country. Having said that, if you see the map of India, like 7,500 kilometer is like the coastline, the peninsula of the country, which basically has like about 7-8 states around that peninsula region, and the rising sea level is going to impact, and the ocean acidification is going to impact the salinity. I mean, the water, it's going to contaminate the aquifer in the coming years. And when you see the northern India, and you have the whole Himalayan range, which is spread across about 9 states, about 10 states, and basically they have constant fear of landslides, earthquakes, and floods, and glacial lake outburst floods. So there is so much that's going on in the country at any given point, and everyone is impacted by this whole thing. Like, it has not it's like the north, the south, the center, and also the 21 cities, the most polluted cities out of the 30 in the world are from India. So you can know the health index, the health, the problem that we're going to face when it comes to health. Delhi, it hits 999 on index. Like, when you talk about air pollution, it hits 999 because it's just a 3-digit recorder. I mean, if you would have like, a 4-digit recorder, you don't know how much it will hit. So the air quality is really dropping at a very drastic level. So we are all into this together, but I really feel that people are not aware about it. And you need to create awareness, and I really thought that through films, maybe I would be able to create that kind of awareness and to make people understand the intensity and the depth of the issue. And because the attitude here is like, each man to himself, like, this is how it goes. So you're not bothered about the major problems, and when it comes to the environmental issues, the government will handle it. I mean, the government will come up with some plan, some magic stick and something, and they're not aware that we have to do this together. It has to be a community-led we have to, it's not going to be a top to bottom approach. It has to be bottom to top and top to bottom approach, both combined together. So it has to be a community-led participation that we're looking at, and we have to be in it all together, and we have to hold hand and basically cross this whole issue together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have basically seen that, how interconnected our problems are, and also how interconnected our solutions must be in order to address, the crisis that we're facing. I just wanted to sort of bring Dorjee into the discussion now. Do you feel like Asia is responding in the right way? Like, are we responding quick enough? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So I'll answer that. I'll give 3 points. So first of all, I think yes. So I think that China is responding in a very, very organized and say Singapore working top down. So I think that on the one hand, you do have major economies doing things very strategically, and they're able to move things faster than say a democratic liberal Western democracy. So for example, Singapore has announced $100 billion for seawalls. There's a huge push around Temasek's, greening and carbon-led work, and same with China. Secondly, though, from the bottom up, I think that there's huge problems. So I read a startling stat that 80 to 90% of all plastic waste in the ocean comes from Asia. I mean, that's just, obviously partially that's because of, the FMG, sort of like the fast-moving consumer good FMCG type companies, but also, is there more we could do from an infrastructure perspective? But lastly, I think, when you look at some of the big gestures being done by, say Amazon or Bezos or, Prince Charles, etc., I think that there are fewer sort of like high-profile champions in Asia. But I think that ultimately this is an existential crisis, as Vivian said. And what Aarti is doing, I mean, I'd love to watch some of your documentaries. I think I might have even watched some. If you did The Forested Man, I mean, I think I saw that already. But if you can just start sharing these stories, I was involved in a documentary going back in time around rainforest. It ended up being narrated by Hugh Jackman, and I was asked about a sequel. And so part of it, I think, is showing the burning in Indonesia. I mean, when that's terrible, when there's the peatlands burning, that can equate to huge proportions of annual emissions. So I think it's also like everyone knows the Amazon. The other area, I think Africa, the problems with fires in Angola and in the Congo Basin, that too also needs to elevate its perspective. But I would actually rank Asia probably third in awareness. So everyone knows about America. Whenever there's a wildfire in America, everyone knows because George Clooney tweets it or whatever. And then Europe is second. Asia is really coming up in third. But could we do more work together? Absolutely. And that's why these types of forums are so important. Back to you, Renard. Moderator with the mostest.
and Vivian, if I can also get your thoughts, and perhaps some of the challenges and barriers you have faced in your work, and what's on your wish list?
First of all, build on what Dorjee has said, and also address the paradigm shift that's coming, right? So with the change in U.S. administration, and with, in particular, John Kerry as the appointment of being appointed to the climate envoy role and a seat on the NSC, Kerry has obviously worked with Ursula, with the EU team, with the Chinese negotiator, even to pave the way for Paris. So the entire Biden administration, okay, maybe I shouldn't say entire, but most of the administration announced so far are highly experienced people who have been leaders in their field already. For some of them, it's a promotion in a job, but in the case of Kerry, this is a continuation of what he has done before in a more visible role. And what it means for the rest of the world is that the US and Europe come January 20th at 12:01 p.m. or 12 p.m. sharp, I think. The US is obviously going to join Paris, but that alone, frankly, doesn't really do that much, to be perfectly honest, right? Paris sets us on a path of 3.7 to 4.1 degrees. That's based on the current NDCs, and even though everybody speaks of a 2 Celsius dream world, that's not happening with current NDCs. So ambition has to be raised, and I see Kerry working hand in hand. There are discussions already going on. with obviously the EU. The EU has been fantastic. It's the first, continent to declare climate neutral goal. That's a huge thing for a continent to achieve. And I think that for Asia to do the same is quite difficult. But we have to do as much as we can. And I think, each country really needs to take a hard look at when it's going to reach climate neutrality. Reaching it by 2050 is going to be below par, to be perfectly honest, very soon. Of course, there are exceptions. I think for China to announce climate neutrality by 2060, given where the economy is now, there's a major goal. And I think most of us applaud that ambition. Other countries, need to step up. And, I think that we need we need not just a mindset shift, the mindset shift that we spoke of earlier, regulatory changes, carbon pricing, so most of Asia is probably not going to be super keen, given the makeup of the key sectors and also given the industries that the tycoons build their wealth in, right? But the next gen has to live in this world that they create and that they influence. And so we are clearly all on the same boat. I mean, unless you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and you're heading to Mars, and in which case you have to figure out how to live there and not just survive, but have a life worth living. The rest of us really are here on planet Earth. So
we've got to continue doing what it takes to continue to build our livelihoods here.
Right. So decarbonization is key because for all of us, the macro environment that we live in. So Aarti spoke of the torrid air pollution in India, and India is a subcontinent, a huge country where five of the world's 10 most polluted cities, are unfortunately India. So people suffer a lot. If you add to that, floods, typhoons, and the Philippines already has 20 typhoons on average a year. If you look across decades, they clearly have increased in severity. And if Arnel remembers our discussion from several years ago when Haiyan hit, there is actually systemic nature-based solutions that can preempt and reduce the suffering, and which we should do, right? You might not be able to adopt the entire solution because of cost and whatnot, but even going towards that will save lives, will save livelihoods. So I think that it's incumbent on leaders. So I call upon, all of us here, but, everyone with hard or soft power to really think about how their role in this world. And, if you care about making a difference, if you care about your legacy, and about bringing, children into a better world, then I think that reading the science and taking a hard look at the carbon footprint of your organizations, the policies that you try to influence, and frankly, our individual carbon footprints, right? I think that, in certain cases, there are uses of carbon that are justified. But, for the vast majority of us, I think we have to be far more careful. So decarbonization, I think decarbonization of the energy grid is key. There are countries with constraints, like mine, but even so, wherever you sit, we have to go as quickly as possible. If we look at, efficiency of electrical appliances, I mean, that sounds super boring, doesn't it? But it's actually a key use of energy, because we lose so much energy in, heat waves, in poorly designed aircon systems in buildings.
Inefficiencies, yeah.
Yeah, you can green a lot of things. You can green cement, you can green, construction, you can have greener appliances, and there are government schemes for this. Now, across countries in Asia, and to be a little more realistic, because there's no actual Asia grouping, right? We have APEC, and everybody wants to join us, join Asian summits basically. But to have a small enough caucus where we can make some headway, given where I sit, Singapore, ASEAN probably is a more effective, and I speak for myself only. Yeah, this is not reflective of any discussion or undercurrents of thinking. But smaller bodies are obviously better able to make decisions and move ahead. I think that wealthier countries could help their neighbors, their brothers, mm-hmm. their brother countries, to say increase yield, to help nitrogen fixation in soil. That may not sound like much to people, but it makes a difference. Introducing algae feed to cows so that they burp less methane. Every bit counts, because not all the beef eaters are going to move to cell-based meat tomorrow. And there are, so it's key to have an accelerator of funds that increase the investment into sectors that help with mitigation and adaptation. Agri-tech is key. We see mental resilience and certain types of healthcare as key as well. Decarbonization, it's all critical, but especially cooling technologies, greener construction and all, and accelerators, because frankly, many entrepreneurs go through some key challenges, and there is tremendous value in learning and leapfrogging. And there are also, country regulations where help will accelerate the decarbonization efforts. And, frankly, a better life. I think part of the challenge is that the administrations the governments in certain Asian countries may not have the same longevity as, say, Angela Merkel, or even here in Singapore, right? So that may make it a little tougher to have policies in place. But the good thing is, I was going to say that, we might not see the same reversals, the 180 reversals as we have in the US, but maybe I wouldn't make that prediction.
But that's very interesting points that you've made about, leveraging on startups, innovation. In fact, Singapore has just become the first country to approve lab-grown meat, I believe. It was covered all over, I think, CNN News, a couple of days ago. But interesting point. And I wanted to sort of bring Aarti in as well, like on the whole subject of leadership, right? Like, what sort of leadership do we sort of anticipate or do we actually need, right, in order to solve this crisis that we're facing?
So when you talk about leadership, I mean,
Aarti, you're on mute.
No, it's unmute. Hello? Can you
hear me? I can hear.
Yes, we can hear you, Aarti. Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So the thing is that when you talk about leadership now, starting from the Prime Minister of the country, we have recently set up about like a committee to implement what we have signed in the Paris Agreement, and we will be having about members from about 14 ministries, from health, water, energy, and you say it, and everything. So there is this kind of leadership which is being set up right now, with an immediate effect. which is going to look into, and these members have every kind of power to speak to any ministry or get things done, and they have been given a blanket permission to do things. On other level, I mean, when you talk about corporations and all the big corporations in India, for about 40 big corporations of India have come together and have created this climate collective of India, and they're trying to align themselves with the government and try to do things accordingly and try to see how and where can they help the government achieve these goals that they have signed up for. And majorly, when we speak about all of this, we have to also keep in mind that we definitely going in and kind of addressing these pressing issues. But what we have to really do at this point is like about 51% of the pollution which is coming from the industrial pollution, and it's adding from the industrial, the whole industries. And something that the government really needs to do right now is to call and kind of name these these polluters, and they shouldn't be kind of worried about the backlash that they will receive. But this is very important when you talk about you're giving 80 million households with equipping 80 million households with clean energy and giving them energy for cooking, and trying to cut down there and promote LED lights, which is actually cutting down 38 million tons of carbon dioxide, and doing all of that. But you cannot ignore the fact that 51% is from the industries in India, and the government has to really go forward and kind of name these industries and take the right actions and approach to do it. When we say that, this is from the government point of view and everything, and I'll share a few beautiful ideas that the community is doing. Like there's a district very close to our city, which was basically 2 years before it was water scarce. There was no water which would sustain about lakhs and lakhs of people in that district, and there was a question as to what will happen to this district. Do they have to kind of shift away from the place, or what is it going to be like? So there was this one person who was an administration head of that place, who was not supposed to do this, but who took on this leadership, and who basically in 3 and 4 months revived about 178 water bodies in span of 4 months. He did not do it alone. He did it with the community together, and they all understood the problem because they were in a huge crisis, and they understood that problem, and they kind of approached it together and they tackled it, and which has become like water sufficient and water excellent state, like the district which we talk about. So a leadership, when we talk about leadership, it has to be like community led, wherein people also support your area administrators, and they kind of come up with issues, solutions which will tackle these issues. So when we talk about leadership, it just cannot be top to down. It has to be down to top, down to top. So we have to, as I said, you have to do this together, and we have to so when it's not that when you are in the crisis, you are going to take action. Now, sooner or later, each and everybody of us are going to land into that situation. Is it that you're going to take action at that point? But there is time, and we can educate a lot of population about the the kind of the crisis that is looming over us, and we have to educate them. So I think that we have to also kind of think about knowledge-led leadership, that we will promote knowledge, and we will make everybody, because I live in a society
leaders who believe in science.
Yes, correct. So basically they come from all walks of life. Somebody who's a manager in a coffee shop, somebody who's a manager in a departmental store, somebody who's various walks of lives, and actresses. They're not, when we talk about environment to them, they're not aware. Though they are influential, they have the capacity to bring about change, when we talk about them, they are unaware about the intensity and the depth of the kind of crisis that we are in. So we really need to educate the population about what is going to happen soon. And we really need to bring out the problems that we are going to face, also balance it with the positive stories of how these problems are being met with the solutions, which are addressed by people and the leaders and everything. So we have to come out with the positive stories and also about the crisis stories that you are in. So we need to develop a knowledge database, and we really need to share this immensely with the people, which can be with the ideas and the solutions which can be replicated, scaled to another city which has the kind of similar geographies. So you have to do things accordingly now, I guess.
And that's where your work sort of kicks in as well, right? In terms of storytelling and being able to document stories, positive and negative ones, right? As part of that knowledge database that you're talking about. I'm just a bit cognizant of time, and we do have a couple of questions that are coming through the chat box. And this is all open to all of our esteemed panelists. The first question is, can anyone sort of weigh in on President Xi's announcement about China's carbon neutral economy by 2060? Is it, like there's been criticisms about whether it's, like too late, any thoughts about that stance?
I mean, Viv made a good comment about it. Just a quick one for me is, I thought, for better or for worse, the UK with Boris Johnson, they made a very aggressive goal of, I think it was 68% by 2030. I think that's the scale of cuts that are going to be required. Now, obviously, there's equity issues, historical issues, but I think that if China could step it up, it's a good baseline, but could they do more? And there's a ton of really good questions. I've just tried to address them in the chat. A really quick one just about, Beyond Meat Impossible from Elise. I think that food and the agricultural supply chain is a huge issue. One of the projects we did with blockchain was with the International Chamber of Commerce. We traced all of the rayon and the seedlings coming from Indonesia as it became actually a product. And so just having transparency. And then that kind of linked into the question, which was by Asriaf, just in terms of like the global richest 10% responsible for half the global carbon. So one of the things that we've been working on is actually now, if you look at the technology leaps, so I find that humanity has never been great at conserving. So the idea of having humanity hold back or reduce consumption is just not in its inherent nature, what I've seen. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's a good thing. There's a great quote which says most of man's problems would be solved by just sitting quietly in a corner. But to that point, I think, betting on technology and disrupting the current trajectory. So having transparency. So for example, working in Indonesia, we are now looking at doing a pilot where digital wallets and digital identity are given to villages. If the villages are able to conserve the forest and that forest carbon is intact, that will be measured by nanosatellites and LiDAR and drones. And then that will then trigger a smart contract, which will allow digital money, digital currency to be paid out based on carbon sales directly to the wallets. And all that does is it reduces the leakage from different levels of government or other governance issues or weaknesses. So I do think transparency and technology can deal with that. But back to the China question, I hand it back to more learned colleagues.
I think the fact that China set the target is something I would applaud. I know that there are a lot of other countries that have not stated when they will reach climate neutrality, and I think having a further breakdown in goals, as the UK has done, and I think the UK has also enshrined it in their legislation. So the government is required to reach that. I think, notwithstanding a lot that has been said about, Bojo's government, that alone is testament to the work of not just that government, but, civil society, business, a pretty woke society with respect to climate issues and its impact. And of course, the UK is an island also, like Singapore. So, you know, it's a country that has seen, you know, sparkling wines actually become quite competitive and quite palatable in a winemaking world. So they have seen impacts, both good and bad, from climate change. Other countries that clearly have seen such impacts, if we think about, you know, wildfires, typhoons, floods, the countries that those terms bring to mind, I think that we need to look at where we are. I mean, we can criticize. I don't advocate criticizing, you know, countries that set out climate neutrality goals. Mm-hmm. I advocate looking at ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Be the change you want. So mm-hmm. where to use it? What have you done? And are you really putting your expertise and resources to bear? Or are you, frankly, helping the culprits greenwash?
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting, Vivian. There's also a question from Benita that sort of links up to this. And her question is, you know, given the pandemic that has happened, do you see a lot of countries sort of pushing back their climate, you know, adaptation plans?
Well, I think that there are really two segments here, right? So with respect to developing countries, because capacity to deal with, you know, shall we say, current problems, which includes COVID-19, and of course, if you don't solve COVID-19, if you don't get the vaccines out to people with cold chain respected, because there's no point getting dead vaccines out, or rather inactivated vaccines, I mean, then it's hard to, you know, get society on board and you know, move in the direction and with the speed we need to. So, which is why I said that, you know, within groupings, we really have to help one another. And I think that just now I mentioned collaboration within ASEAN. Obviously, it would actually be a lot faster if there are bilateral discussions. So, you know, and for countries, organizations, I mean, I think this is something that we can help facilitate. So if, you know, where there's interest, you know, let's speak, and where there's interest in serious decarbonization work, I'm sure we can work out a way for bilateral and multilateral financing, and for public-private partnerships, right? We see social bonds, green bonds, the development of the sustainable finance market, for various reasons, not just for climate change, to be perfectly honest. But the interest and the opportunity is there, and the capital markets, you know, the capital markets will move to where the resources are. So it is entirely possible to move fast if you do champions all technologies that will decarbonize. You know, get in touch with me, and we'll do all we can to you know, facilitate things going forward.
Yeah, I'm just a bit cognizant of the time that we have. I just wanted to get each panelist to sort of summarize, like, what is your one call to action, like, for all participants who are attending this together? Maybe we can start with Aarti.
Oh, okay. So basically, I think we all have to, on a daily basis, I mean, as an individual, you have to really think about what kind of changes you're making to becoming a better individual, or a better family, or a better society, or a better community. So we have to, what is it that you're putting in on a daily basis? You have to make changes to your life. You have to make decisions, and you have to make kind of a different kind of decisions, which is more earth friendly and environment friendly. So I think we have to see it from an individual point of view now, when we are in this together and when we are talking about it.
Dorjee?
I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to give you my one answer with three subparts. So my one answer is, I mean, we all have this amazing bond that we've all been through the Asia 21 leadership program. We're connected. We trust each other. Viv, we need to catch up in Singapore. So I think the first one would be, the only one would be collaborate. How do we organize groups where, whether it's WhatsApp chat groups, I'm on a bunch from hydrogen through to land use. So how do we kind of like all come together where we're doing regular chats as opposed to just on sessions? And my 3 sub-points are, so one, I'm working on technology that disrupts existing bad practice. So, one of the comments that I've been commenting to in the chat from Elise was around food. So like if you can find an alternative to palm oil is a driver of deforestation. So in the same way that Mosa Meats or Memphis Meats have taken a stem cell and replicated a whole biodigester for beef, that disrupts beef as a driver of deforestation. Can anyone, or if anyone has seen, algal chains or algal types of startups or other startups that create the same types of product as palm oil, but from a biodigester, I think that's a huge area that I'm personally looking for. Second sub area is around land use change and agriculture. So I've been in the forestry conservation area for a long time. So anyone who's in that area, please reach out. The third one is my wife and I do a lot of angel investing and tech investing in VC around, again, disruptive technologies for climate. So anyone who's in that area, please reach out. And the fourth one, one last one would be, after seeing what Aarti has been talking about, I'm really interested in either funding or working with narratives and storytelling. So for example, if we're thinking about doing another one in Indonesia, so Aarti, please let's connect and let's figure out how to collaborate.
Yes,
anyone else who's there. So just one, Renard, collaboration.
Yeah, one word, 4 subparts. And Vivian, any last parting words with the participants?
Well, collaboration is certainly key. Climate change is the existential crisis of our generation. If you ever wanted to make a difference, if you truly care about helping people and making the world a better place, join the battle, use your superpower. And for the people in government and at levers of power within Asia, if you look at how the US, EU, and China are moving to centralize and lead climate-related regulation, I would say that change is coming, and it will be a tsunami wave that will be faster and more intense than you realized. So you can prepare your country now, or you can be changed by others. That's your prerogative, but it's on you.
Yeah, a very, very powerful message once again from Vivian. But you're all right. Climate crisis is the defining issue of our generation, and it's something that we have to work towards. Many people say that COVID-19 is just a dress rehearsal for what is to come, and we need to keep the dialogue and conversation going. As Dorjee has pointed out, we shouldn't just do this.
We have to act. We have in 10 years when we look back at this panel, we will be chastised for not emphasizing the urgency and the severity enough. But as Aarti noted, balanced messages are required to make this palatable and to get this out to people. So there are certain messages, but for those who know exactly what's going on, it's on us to act as fast as we can, as wisely as we can, and to bring society along. Climate justice is key, and investments, acceleration, collaboration is key. So let's we talked about climate groups, and I think we signed up for something at the last event. For those who are interested in working on climate mitigation and all, email me and I'll set up a group this time. All right.
Yes. I think we have time is up. So we will connect. I've spoken to Sanjeev. We will set up this task force group, like for those who are interested in working in climate through the Asia Society 21 platform. Absolutely, and thanks for that, Vivian. Just as a reminder, the next session is at 7 p.m. Hong Kong time. It will be hosted by Aaron Maniam, like on Give and Take. So definitely do log on to the Hop-In platform and check that out too. Thank you very much once again to all of our distinguished panelists, and let's keep the conversation and collaboration like going. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thanks. Bye.